to take about 15 or so minutes for questions. If you could just raise your hand. Once you get called on, stand up, say your question loudly. I will repeat the question since we are trying to record this. Hopefully it's going to work. If your question is directed to a specific panelist, let them know. If it's a general question, that's cool too. So feel free to chime in. Does anybody have any questions to start us off? Yes.
Hi, my name is Angela. I have a question for Robin. If you have a community church, a community garden attached to a church, you mentioned the profit. Can the community garden make enough money just to support itself and still not jeopardize the church or create any extra tax issues?
Can I just repeat the question?
Yeah.
So the question was, if a community garden is attached to a church, can the community garden make enough money to support itself without jeopardizing any sort of status for the church?
Yeah, first I'm glad you asked that question because it reminded me, there's also a side lot program in Baltimore City, which I do not know the details of, but if
there's a vacant lot that's directly next to your property, like your home, I think you would probably still include churches.
Yeah, it would.
Yeah, if there's a vacant lot next to your property, you can actually now purchase that vacant lot for $500. This is awesome because they can sometimes be as much as $30,000. So if there's a vacant lot next to your house, flat rate $500 to purchase it.
Is that just city-owned lots?
City-owned lots, yeah. If it's a private owner, it's really to the discretion of the owner.
Yeah, so getting back to the question though, so if the garden is making money and just supporting itself, a lot of it just goes to the intent behind the project. So are you intending to make a profit on the garden? If the answer is no, I think you're already okay. Are you intending to, help feed the community? Is that what you're trying to do? Then I think you're fine. I would also just mention churches are kind of a whole other ball of wax for nonprofits. Because of separation of church and state, there's a lot more leeway for churches than there are for other nonprofits. There's a lot less in terms of registration requirements and reporting requirements for churches.
And by the way, the church does own the land.
So the church
they
owns the
own
land,
the land.
so that's great.
It's part of their property.
Yeah. The other thing I just thought of randomly about ownership, the reason ownership is complicated, and part of the reason there are so many vacant lots in the city, this is something that perplexed me since I moved here. I'm like, why are there so many vacant lots and vacant buildings? Why can't we just get those back into productive use? And part of it is really liens. So there's tax liens, there's people that just haven't paid anything. A lot of times there used to be a house on that property and the city went in, it was unsafe, so the city went in and demolished the house. Then the city bills the owner for all of that work, and it's not cheap to have the city demolish your house. So, and then there's all the legal fees associated with that. So what ends up happening is you might be in a neighborhood that doesn't have, where the market is completely collapsed, but that lot is $30,000 in the hole already, or $100,000 in the hole. So that's part of the reason that the property issues in Baltimore City are so complicated, and part of the reason it's so hard to get out from under. This goes for buildings as well. So.
Yeah.
Distinguish between profit and salary in a sense?
The question was, can you distinguish between profit and salary?
Profit
So
and
like if you're
salary.
making a profit on your project versus people are being paid a salary, what is sort of the salary guideline at which point it exceeds into profit?
Well, a nonprofit can pay people a salary. I mean, I make a salary, luckily,
Right.
and I work for a nonprofit. So there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, there are some rules that I really wouldn't worry about this community getting into trouble with that because I feel like fundraising is really tough in greening projects. So, there's nothing wrong with making a salary at a nonprofit. There is a problem sometimes with excessive compensation. Like I said, you guys probably don't have to worry about that.
I don't think so.
So yeah, if you're like way over the amount that's reasonable for what would normally be paid to a nonprofit worker, that could be an issue. For nonprofits, this mainly comes up in conflict of interest situations. So if the board of directors for a nonprofit starts paying itself a lot of money, or paying a family member a lot of money, something like that, that starts to look a little shady, and I would be careful. But other than that, salary is not a problem. Salary is not a problem. That's not considered profit. That's considered you're doing work.
The organization.
Yeah.
And it just needs to balance out, right? Like I spent $500 setting up this community garden and running it for the season, and we made $500 in like stand sales on the corner. We did not make a profit. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, then you're also starting to get into like employment law issues. I'm not even gonna go there because it's really complicated. I mean, independent contractor stuff is really complicated, and right now the state and federal government are really hurting for money, and it's an area where they are heavily enforcing. So if you're employing somebody in any way, get a lawyer, because it can sink the whole project and sink the whole organization. And I hate to be that way about it, but it really, I've seen it, so just be careful if you're employing anyone at all.